I hope this finds you complete audiobook. Sadie, it's an honor to be waiting outside the school gates for Julius Gong. Not that I'd ever admit it to him, of course. So I pretend to be busy, rifling through my bag, even though I've already noticed him walking up the hill in my peripheral vision. Difficult not to notice him when he looks like that. Dark hair, falling over his eyes, unfairly pretty face, his tie straight as his grades, his blazer sleeves rolled up halfway. Despite the summer heat rising all around us, he's still sticking to his winter school uniform, for no reason other than his utter disdain for shorts in any kind of non-beach setting. When I was thoughtful enough to question him about it the other week, I mean, surely you're hot in that. He stared at me for a deliberate beat, then said slowly, eyes gleaming, "Yes, Sadie, I'm glad you think so." Another reason why I can't let him know I've been standing around waiting for him for the past half hour. His already inflated ego seems to have reached new peaks recently, and I'm probably partly responsible for it. Still, as he draws closer, my heart does this funny little leap, like I'm seeing him for the first time in months, when I only just said goodbye to him last night on the steps of my family's bakery. "Waiting for me?" he asks, easily crossing the remaining distance between us, a faint grin tugging at his lips. "No," I say at once. "I was just looking for something." "Looking for what?" His brows rise. "A convincing lie?" "No, I repeat, louder." I yank out my daily planner and flip the pastel pink cover open to a random page. This. "Ah, right." He hooks one casual finger around the strap of my bag and tugs, pulling me closer to him so he can read the planner over my shoulder. "You need to see what you were planning to do 3 Wednesdays ago? Wow, I've only heard of people planning in advance. I didn't realize you could also plan in hindsight." "Shush, that was just the wrong page," I insist, trying my best to focus on the planner while his breath tickles my neck. At last, I find my list of tasks for the day. Beneath the vaguely threatening title I've written out for myself, "To do or else," I've highlighted and underlined "Final Math Test." I make my way further down. Submit chemistry quiz, annotate pages 10-30 of text study, update exam booklet, finish writing mock essay, review speech for valedictory dinner, buy thank you gifts for all teachers and principal, check bakery admin email, before landing on a new task in someone else's sharp, neat handwriting. It says, "Take a break and go on a date with Julius." I hold the planner up higher and whirl around. "Wait, when did you write this?" Julius gazes innocently over at me. "What are you talking about?" "I recognize your handwriting, Julius," I point out, biting my cheek to stop from smiling too wide. "I'm pretty sure I've spent a combined total of 80 hours staring at it." "That seems like an underestimation," he says. "You have, by your own admission, spent longer than that just staring at my hands." I wriggle free from him and march through the gates with as much false indignation as I can muster, knowing he'll follow right behind. And he does, his footsteps falling quickly after mine. "I thought we agreed we weren't going to bring up the emails again." "Sorry," he says, without sounding remotely apologetic. "Though I think you should rearrange the order of your tasks. Make the last task your first priority." "I'll take a proper break after I beat you in the test today," I tell him. "Kind of cocky, aren't you?" "I must have learned it from you." Without glancing at him, I can tell he's smiling. I hadn't thought it was possible to know Julius Gong better than I already knew him. Not when I've spent 10 years doing everything within my power to outsmart him, becoming attuned to his quirks and routines and habits. But there's so much more. With him, without glancing at him, I can tell he's smiling. I hadn't thought it was possible to know Julius Gong better than I already knew him. Not when I've spent 10 years doing everything within my power to outsmart him, becoming attuned to his quirks and routines and habits. But there's so much more. With him, there's always more. More to do, more to hope for, more to say, more to learn. New spaces carved into our routines for each other, new habits we've created together. Like how, when we reach the math building, he pushes the heavy glass door open and holds it for me. Or how, when all the other students start streaming indoors with their backpacks and tennis rackets, he naturally puts his arm around my shoulders, careful not to let anyone bump into me. And isn't it strange? I find myself marveling how the safest I've ever felt is beside the boy I once considered the bane of my existence. I can't believe you already have a list of tasks for the holy days, Julius says, nodding to my planner as I wrestle it back into my bag. Well, of course, I huff out. I need to be productive. And I fully intend to be. During the half-year gap between when school finishes here in Melbourne and when college starts in the US, I'm going to complete an internship, learn a new language, get a part-time job as a tutor, hire and train 2 more employees to help out at the bakery, run a marathon, and read the 40 books I've been meaning to get to all year. Rest assured that you're on track to have the most productive holiday ever, Julius remarks. I hope that makes you happy. It does, I say cheerily, which earns me an affectionate shake of his head. I suppose it's just as well, he says, since you won't have to set aside time to plan out our trip. Oh, I've already set aside time for that, I cut in. He arches a brow. So the bet's still on? Of course it is. It's all I've been thinking about ever since we made the deal 2 months ago. Whoever scores higher in this final math test will get to plan out the entirety of our upcoming US trip before he starts college at Stanford and I start at Berkeley, and the other person will have to go along with absolutely everything. Even if my pride weren't on the line, the idea of not being able to control every single factor while traveling around another country is horrifying. And with only 6 months to go before we leave for the US, we're already seriously pushing my limits when it comes to planning ahead. If I don't start booking tickets and finalizing details soon, I might actually break out into stress hives. It's not like I don't trust Julius to organize our itinerary, but I'm used to doing these things by myself. From family vacations to girls' trips with Abigail, I'm always the one people turn to for the check-in time and reservation code and restaurant recommendations. Plus, Julius and I clearly don't have the same idea of what makes for a pleasant trip. While I was leaning more toward a cute, cozy, conveniently located Airbnb, Julius has been eyeing a 5-star boutique hotel with Pegasus statues and fountains inside the lobby. Just checking. Julius fixes me with that beautiful, infuriating look I hate almost as much as I love. No backing out if you lose. I slow to a stop in front of the math classroom, lift my chin, meet his gaze. You're the one who's a sore loser. Only because losing is so rare for me, he says. It offends my very being. You offend my very being. He huffs out a laugh. Excuse me? Okay, that was unnecessary, I say. You don't offend my very being. Well, you do, or you used to, but only sometimes. When did you become so romantic? He says dryly. But he reaches into his pocket and hands me a strawberry and yogurt granola bar. It's both my favorite brand and flavor, the ones that are only available from the organic supermarket all the way on the other side of town, where everything costs triple the price and the customers almost exclusively wear Lululemon. I blink at the bar in my hand, confused. What is this? Has all that late-night studying impaired your ability to organize basic food, Sadie? I know, but I mean, why? Are you trying to poison me? He scoffs. We've gotten dinner together like 50 times by now. I literally made you that steak dinner in my house just the other week. It was delicious, by the way. I loved the sauce. I can cook it for you again? He says immediately. But my point is, if I wanted to poison you, I would have had far better opportunities to do so. Valid, I concede. But then, you always lose your appetite before a test, don't you? You can take a few bites or save it for later if you'd like. I just don't want you fainting from hunger in the middle of class. As I slip the bar into my blazer pocket, I feel a rush of gratitude for him so strong it's almost violent, like an attack on my system. Everything in me rendered raw and vulnerable, left reeling in his wake. God help us the day he finds out how much he affects me. Thank you, I tell him. And good luck with the test. The expression on his face is half smile, half smirk, smugness without malice. I don't need any luck. Yeah, sure you don't, I say. Then, scanning the corridor to make sure there aren't too many people looking our way, I quickly step toward him, reach around the back of his neck, hands finding his hair, and stand on my tiptoes. Before he can react, I press my lips to his. Soft, slow, open. Perfect. He exhales shakily, his arms already tightening around my waist, leaning into me as if he's amazed this is happening. When I release him, his eyes are wide, dazed, like he's forgotten and wished where we are for a few seconds before sharpening back on me. You definitely did that on purpose, El accuses. To mess with my head before the test. I have to bite back my laughter. Then maybe you shouldn't let yourself get distracted so easily. Can you blame me? He says, with an air of something like resignation, like defeat. Have you seen yourself? And it's almost as if I'm able to. I see myself reflected in his eyes, my cheeks flushed and my ponytail swishing, and he's watching me with such clear, unabashed affection that it's difficult not to believe he wants me. Makes me slightly dizzy to imagine I could hold that much power over another person, let alone someone like Julius Gong. Then the first warning bell sounds, and I straighten, forcibly pushing aside all tender thoughts of him. For the next period, he will not be my first and greatest love, but my first enemy, my greatest rival. I will obliterate him, and then I will hold him gently while we celebrate my victory. See you in there, I tell him, and turn on my heel before he can do something evil and ruinous, like kiss me back. Julius. For a decade, Julius did his best to avoid being seated next to Sadie Wen. He realized very early on that nothing was more detrimental to his studies. Her closeness was too overpowering. He'd find himself staring in her direction more often than he stared at the board. He became overly aware of his own body, his posture, and if he'd styled his hair well enough that morning, and whether his blazer was wrinkled, and her. He was always instantly, pathetically aware of her in every room she entered. But it became unbearable when they were sitting side by side at the same table. His own thoughts taunted and betrayed him. He shouldn't be noticing how the freckles on her cheeks looked more prominent in the morning light. How she adjusted her bun whenever she had a headache. How she chewed the end of her pen when she was trying to solve an equation. He shouldn't be tensing whenever her shoulder accidentally brushed against his, or when she reached over his desk for a worksheet. He shouldn't be keeping track of how many times she faked a smile at the teacher or her classmates, or nodded along when she was clearly uncomfortable, and how many times her face lit up 10 with genuine excitement. He shouldn't be concerned that the latter happened far less frequently than the former, and he most definitely shouldn't be wondering how to change that. as if her happiness had anything to do with him. But that was back when he was still fighting against the idea of her. And no matter how strong his willpower, he can see in hindsight that he was destined to lose from the beginning. Now he's grateful for every class where the teachers have allowed them to sit together. It makes even the dullest subjects interesting. And today, it also makes the wait for their results that much shorter. The second Mr. K sets Sadie's math paper down before her. He glances over. Faster than Sadie can hide her score. 97%. Not bad, he tells Sadie, impressed despite himself. Their final math test was undoubtedly the hardest one they've taken all year, and he heard that the year level's average was only 63%. Don't say anything until you get your score, Sadie warns him. But there's a small smile on her lips, the anticipation of victory. He meets her gaze as steadily as he can, though he feels his pulse picking up. He knows for certain he's lost at least 1 mark. It was that cursed challenge question at the end, which he recalculated as soon as he got home after the test. A disgusting blunder. But as long as he didn't miss anything else, there's 11 still a chance he could beat her. He has to beat her. He already has the perfect US trip planned out for her. Well done, Julius, Mr. K says, sliding his paper over. He flips it to the first page right away, blood pounding in his eardrums as he finds the score, almost afraid to see it. 96%. No, he whispers, a physical reaction more than a verbal one. Automatic. Yes, comes Sadie's delighted response. Oh my God, this is great. You have to honor the bet, okay? Wait, he says, shaking his head. He goes through all the questions he lost a mark on, 3 in total. He refuses to believe it. There must be something he can do, something to salvage this. It was a close match, Sadie says happily, and she's so exuberant, so pleased with herself, that he almost drops the matter. He would drop anything just to keep her smiling like that. It's okay if you need some time to accept your defeat. While you do that, I'm going to finish outlining the itinerary. But then he finds it. The third question. The teacher didn't give him any marks for it, yet he's sure his answer is right. Can I see what you wrote for this one? He asks Sadie. Sure, she says, sliding her paper toward him. If you need me to explain it, we literally wrote the same answer. Look, he says, pointing down at the number like it's a groundbreaking scientific discovery. How did you get marks if I didn't? Sadie studies the 2 tests for a minute. Because you didn't show your working out. Because I didn't need to show my working out, he says, and can't help adding a little smugly, I did it in my head. Sadie offers him an indulgent sort of smile. Good job. The teacher clearly doesn't think so. Well, the teacher needs to see all the steps. Those extra steps were unnecessary, he insists. It would have taken more effort to write it all down than to simply solve it. But it's about the process. Does it really matter what the process is if I got the result? See, morally, philosophically, you understand how that kind of thinking would be a problem, right? Julius rolls his eyes. But this isn't philosophy class. It's math. Is there a problem here? Mr. K asks, circling around to their desk again. Julius thought he and Sadie were discussing their tests in quiet, reasonable tones, but only now does he realize the whole class has stopped what they're doing to watch them. He forces his voice back down into a normal volume and offers the teacher his best smile. I wouldn't say there's a problem, Mr. K, but I'm somewhat confused about the grading of this question. You see, I had written the right answer, but I wasn't awarded any marks for it. You have the answer, yes, but I wasn't able to see how you 13 had reached it, Mr. K explains, lowering himself to peer over at the paper in that awkward, semi-squatting position teachers do, like he doesn't want to commit to lingering any longer than needed. Sadie's working out is a perfect example of what I was looking for. It's neat, it's logical, and you can follow exactly how she went from step A to step B. See? Sadie whispers into his ear, not even concealing her glee. But people might approach the problem differently. Julius presses. I saw the question, and my mind provided me with the answer right away. I don't know how I'm expected to convey that. You're saying the number just sprang into your head, Mr. K says. When you do enough practice questions, it's entirely possible, Julius says. And I thought the school wanted to encourage us to learn using the method that best suits us. This is the method that best suits me. Mr. K hesitates. Julius seizes the beat of silence. Even if you can't award me the full marks, Mr. K, surely I don't deserve 0 marks for getting the correct answer? I suppose your answer was correct, Mr. K allows. And maybe it's because he can sense that Julius is both willing and able to debate this point until lunchtime and is simply too tired for this. Or because Julius has accrued enough credit after completing his challenge questions every week since the start of school. But 14, he picks up Julius's paper, considers it for a moment longer, then adds 1 mark next to the question. Sadie makes an indignant sound. What? Thank you so much, Mr. K, Julius calls after the teacher as he returns to his desk. Now it's his turn to grin at Sadie. According to the calculations I just did in my head, that brings my overall percentage up to 97, which makes it a tie. You can't be serious, Sadie grumbles, prodding him in the ribs with her pen, but gently. You negotiated your way to victory. As many brilliant strategists have done, Julius says. Don't worry, I'll be fair. Yeah, right. Since when did you ever play fair? Since now, he says sweetly. How about I plan out the first half of the trip and you plan out the second? That gives us a whole week of activities each. But if I'm taking the first half, I do think it makes sense for me to decide on the accommodation. I'm just concerned you're going to book us a deluxe suite in that horribly overpriced 5-star hotel, Sadie says. Rest assured that if I were to book a deluxe suite, I'd book the honeymoon suite for us, he tells her. But you'll see. Sadie prods him one final time, but Julius just laughs, catches the pen in his fingers, and tugs her toward him until she's only a couple of inches away. She stares up at him, annoyance warring with affection on her face, and ultimately losing, color spreading fast through her cheeks. God, he loves sitting next to her. Can't 15 believe he's wasted all this time resisting, trying to run away when she's the only one he's ever wanted to run toward. I hate you, she grumbles without conviction, her voice soft enough to be a sigh. He tugs her closer still, taking his time to take her in, his smile widening slowly. I know you don't, he says, and she doesn't disagree. Sadie, I keep waiting for a Pegasus to appear, but when our Uber pulls into the driveway, there are no statues of mythical creatures in sight. There isn't even a lobby, just a 3-story building with robin blue walls and wisteria draped over the iron gate, blending in perfectly with the other houses lining the streets. Are we in the right place? I ask Julius. Where's our hotel? There is no hotel, he says, sliding out of the back seat. He rounds the car from behind, then opens the door for me. This is where we'll be staying. I booked us an Airbnb. What? I hop outside into the sun, following him as he unloads our luggage from the trunk. Well, it's mostly my luggage. He's somehow managed to condense 2 weeks of clothing into a single suitcase. Meanwhile, I've packed everything from my most trusted dermatologist-approved brand of shampoo and sunscreen to my emergency supply of fuzzy socks. But what about that fancy hotel you wanted? I decided against it, he says with a shrug. I know it's expensive, and you'd get all weird and guilty if I offered to pay for it on your behalf. Plus, the hotel was in a famously noisy area, and you're a super light sleeper. I stare at him. Somehow, even though he's already proven over and over that he can be shockingly sweet and considerate and always thinks of me, he still manages to surprise me. Are you sure? I ask. Very, he says. Don't worry, I get to stay in fancy hotels all the time. I'm not exactly missing out. This, I do believe. The gate rattles open, and we both turn to find a slender woman in her 50s waving enthusiastically over at us. Her hair fans out in wild dark blonde curls around her heart-shaped face, the woolen scarf around her neck fluttering in the breeze. "Welcome, welcome," she calls out to us. Her voice sounds tailor-made for her slight build and fashion sense. High and sweet and kind of airy. "Do you need help with the luggage? Your room is up on the second floor, and I'm afraid it's a bit steep." "No, we've got it," Julius calls back, picking up both my massive suitcases and carrying them up the stairs with ease like they weigh nothing. This is unfortunately devastatingly attractive to me, and I have to give myself a mental shake to stop from gawking as I climb up to join him at the entrance. "Her name's Margaret," Julius murmurs to me. "Says in her bio that she's an artist." "What kind of artist?" I murmur back. This is what we try to figure out as she shows us inside. The house does look like it was decorated by someone with a trained artistic eye. Everything has been carefully selected in matching 18 shades of mahogany and olive and burgundy, stylish in a muted, timeless way. The fireplace has been set with stone owl sculptures and sand-speckled vases, fresh jasmines left inside an empty Firefly Ridge wine bottle. Over the dining table hangs a poster titled 5 Surrealists from the Minnell Collections in the National Gallery of Art, according to the description below. Now, let me just demonstrate how this particular light switch works, because it can be tricky when you're new to it, I suppose, since it's quite a special one. Margaret says, pointing to the very regular light switch, which works in the very regular fashion. She has a way of speaking like she's constantly on the verge of saying something else, only to change her mind again. And you'll want to know how the showers work too, I imagine? If you could just... Yes, follow me. The bathroom's just over here. And also... Alright, this is the bathroom, as you can see. Julius and I exchange amused glances and wander through the house with her, from the living room on one end to the reading room on the other. "Oh, this is my favorite place in the house," Margaret tells us, and I immediately understand why. There's barely any furniture, just a bookshelf and a coffee table in the center, and there are more windows than walls. A balcony looks out at the gardens below, where wildflowers spring from the soft soil and 2 lemon trees stand guard over another owl sculpture. Maybe that's what Margaret is the artist of. Through the shades, the sun is setting over the hills, the light turning everything into gold. It looks exactly like my dream home, the happy place I'd imagined for myself when I was exhausted and so burned out I couldn't breathe. Did Julius know? Is that why he chose this flat? "Do you like it here?" Julius asks, coming around to lace his fingers through mine. The touch of his hand, the warmth of the sun, the open room, silver dust motes floating, our home for the next couple of weeks. Just us. I nod. But what I mean is, I hadn't imagined that life could be like this. It's okay though, because when he squeezes my hand 3 times and leads me down the corridor, I know he knows. "You have my phone number, yes?" Margaret is saying. "Please do text me if you need anything at all, or better yet, you can simply walk up and knock on my door. I live just upstairs." She's nothing like my mother, yet she feels motherly, familiar. Once she's wrapped up the first half of the house tour, she offers us detailed instructions on how to use the kettle and the dryer and the Wi-Fi, and then points to a picnic basket on the counter. There are some chocolate chip cookies inside if you're hungry after your flight and looking for a treat or, well, I don't know what you like, but my nieces really enjoy them, she says. Of course, there are some lovely cafes in the area too. There is this, what was the name now? I'd written it in the handbook. I'll find it later. But yes, there's this popular 20 bakery down the street with the best croissants, comparable to the ones in France, they say. Amazing, thank you. We'll have to check it out, I tell her. The cookies smell amazing, Julius adds. She beams at him. And I hear you both came all the way from Australia, she asks. Is that right? We did, Julius says, basically just around the block. The spiders, she says at once, which is, anecdotally, one of the first things people associate with the country. Yes, the spiders, Julius says. Are they all... am I correct to think that they're large, aren't they? Margaret wants to know, with what seems to be real concern. Sometimes. Julius offers her one of his crowd-pleasing smiles. You shouldn't worry about them too much, though. Just have to know where to go and who to stick to. I've always wanted to visit, Margaret says, looking thoughtful. It's just the spiders I'm scared of. Well, do tell us if you ever decide to come down, Julius tells her. We can give you recommendations for spider-free spots. It used to annoy me, but I secretly love when he's like this. His charm switched on, his manners impeccable, endlessly patient, almost glowing. The kind of boy who elderly strangers dote on, who you trust to command a room full of people. The kind of boy you'd feel proud to bring to a large family gathering, no matter how many gossiping aunties are there. That's very kind, Margaret gushes, and I wouldn't be surprised if she reached out and pinched his cheeks. She twirls around in the grey-tiled kitchen and ushers us back toward the closets by the bathroom. Now, one last thing before I forget. Here are all your essential supplies. She yanks the closet doors open, and Julius and I fall into stunned silence. The entire closet has been crammed with towels of every possible size. There are more here, in case you need them, Margaret adds, opening the closet beside it, only to reveal an equally impressive stash of towels that would put most hotels to shame. Julius glances at me sidelong, as if to confirm whether he's justified in his astonishment at the amount of towels. Right, I'll get out of your hair now and leave you two to settle in, maybe get some rest, recover from the jet lag, or do a bit of sightseeing if that's whatever you feel like doing. Totally up to you. And you do have my number? Yes. No, we spoke about that already. Okay. Ah, wonderful, wonderful. Do enjoy your stay, Margaret says. We both thank her profusely for the cookies and the towels and the instructions. When she closes the door behind her, I heave a small, happy sigh and turn to Julius, taking in everything. Him and the flat and the very fact that we're in a completely new country now. It's like we're two kids playing house, but it's also the most grown-up I've ever felt. The most free. So, what do you think of the trip so far? Julius asks, taking my hand and spinning me around in the living room as if it's a dance floor. I think it's almost perfect, I tell him. He draws me back to his chest. Almost perfect? What's missing? Oh, I don't know, I say, grinning, and gesture to the two full closets behind us. I'm just worried there aren't enough towels. He laughs, and there are no almosts. Everything is entirely, wonderfully perfect. Julius. Before, there was little Julius hated more than being caught making an effort. The mortification of trying, of struggling to achieve something before he had truly achieved it. Not that there was anything wrong with the act of trying, but he just didn't want anyone to know about it. It felt too vulnerable and exposing and awkward, like having people gather around to watch you while you're putting your socks on in the morning. He much preferred working in private, when nobody was watching. And then only once he had the concrete results to show for it, acting as though that success had simply fallen into his lap, as though he was good by nature, by design. During one of those boring speeches at the start of the year, the principal had created a slideshow with a cliched diagram of an iceberg, only the peak visible, the rest submerged underwater. Success is only what people see, the principal had said. What they don't see is all the sacrifice and the hard work and the long hours that go into it. Which was, Julius had thought snidely, the whole point. Why would anyone want to gawk at the full iceberg? No. Effort had always felt like compensation, which implied that there was something to compensate for. A lack of talent, maybe. A limit to his potential. He hated it all the more because his brother has never really tried at anything in his life. James Gong has never needed to, because things actually just fall into his lap. Invitations, awards, book deals, acceptance letters, money. Once, James came first place in an international essay competition, much to his own bewilderment. James swore, even as he walked off the stage with his gold trophy and $20,000 cash prize, that he hadn't entered the competition at all. Only later did they discover that one of James's professors had been so moved by an essay he'd written, last minute, in under an hour, for an ungraded assignment, that she had secretly gone ahead and submitted the essay for him. Things like that were always happening to James. And as if the universe needed to provide yet another example, his brother's abstract paintings are now being sold at a fancy art auction. "Your what are being what?" was his first reaction when his brother casually dropped this news at the dining table last week, right after asking their dad to pass him the papaya salad, like these matters were of equal importance. "My abstract paintings," James repeated very clearly while he heaped most of the salad onto his own plate. On either side of him, their parents just smiled. So proud, so happy their oldest son was their son, and let him keep talking. Their being? "No, stop right there. Since when did you have paintings? Since when were you even remotely interested in art?" Julius demanded. "So funny story," James said, even though his funny stories were never funny, unless he meant funny as in extremely weird, that this is something that can happen to a human being. "I was busy working on the follow-up to my critically acclaimed, award-winning, internationally best-selling novel the other day. You understand, you don't have to add that description every single time you bring up your novel, right?" James chuckled. "I can't help it, Juicy. My publicist keeps reminding me to mention it in TV interviews and such. And I've done so many interviews, it's just muscle memory at this point." Disgusted into silence, Julius bit his tongue and stabbed his chopsticks through the braised chicken wing on his plate. But where was I? Oh, so I get this call from my old classmate at Harvard Law, and he tells me he's visiting Australia and wants to catch up. And so, despite how incredibly packed my schedule is, I make the time to go meet him. And he's booked this interactive restaurant that lets you paint while you drink tea. Now why? Julius couldn't help interjecting. Would anyone want to do that? "It cleanses the spirit," James said knowingly. Julius wanted to cleanse his spirit of this conversation. "So we're painting. And of course, as you know, I've never painted anything before. The last time I held a paintbrush was most likely in primary school, but there was something about the atmosphere or the tea, and I just felt it was like when the initial idea for my critically acclaimed, award-winning, internationally best-selling novel first came to me. It was almost as if I had been possessed by an otherworldly force. Before I knew it, I had this completed painting, and the waiter sees it and gasps. And he gasps so loudly that other customers at the restaurant run over to look too. James paused for dramatic effect. And you'll never believe what happens next. I already cannot believe any of this, Julius muttered under his breath. One of the other customers turns out to be a famous collector who's holding the biggest art auction in San Francisco next week, and he's standing there in awe. And then he grabs my hand with tears in his eyes and tells me I must allow him the honor of including my art at his auction. Julius had been right. This story was not funny at all, but his parents were practically clapping their hands. That's perfect, Baobei, his mother gushed. We always knew you had artistic talent. It makes so much sense that you wouldn't just be a genius at writing, but painting too. Oh, and you'll be in San Francisco the same time as your little brother. He can come to your auction. The horrifying thought had occurred to Julius at the exactly same moment. Slowly, he set his chopsticks down and did his best to suppress a grimace. Right, you must come, James told him with an air of great benevolence. And bring that little girlfriend of yours too. I really don't think... Don't worry about the tickets, James cut in. They might be pricey and extremely exclusive, but I'm sure they'll let my own brother in. That's not. You're very welcome, Juicy, James said, appearing moved by his own generosity. It's great to know that I'll be the highlight of your trip. So here he is, God help him, taking his seat beside Sadie in a grand ballroom that has been reserved for this occasion. This is the only part of his US itinerary that he hasn't planned around Sadie, that he hadn't wanted to plan for at all. The air is stuffy and thick with the overpowering scent of someone's perfume. A scent that reminds him unpleasantly of incense. And he's trapped between rows and rows of well-dressed, somber-faced adults, some of them fanning themselves with their paddles. If not for that, and the artworks on display at the front of the stage, he would have thought he'd accidentally wandered into a business conference. Thank you for doing this with me, he tells Sadie in a whisper. I wasn't sure if you'd want to come. Are you kidding? Sadie shakes her head. I obviously wasn't going to let you suffer alone. He feels himself smile for the first time all evening in the past. Whenever he let slip even the slightest hint of bitterness or jealousy toward his brother, people would react as if he'd committed fratricide or something. They acted as if he ought to worship James just because they worshipped James, and to behave otherwise was blasphemy, maybe even pure evil. They told him, you should be proud of your brother. You should be thrilled for him and his success. He set such a wonderful example for you. But Sadie just leans over, hand covering her mouth so the suit-clad men can't overhear, and tells him, Okay, to give you a heads up, approximately 10 minutes after the auction segment is over, when people are standing around, sipping cocktails, and your brother has updated everyone on his new book that's being adapted into a movie, directed by him, written by him, and starring him, I'm going to disappear into the bathroom, and you'll receive a phone call telling you that you have to leave right away, which will be super unfortunate. And then you'll head outside, and I'll meet you at the front door, and we'll go try that burrito place Abigail visited, like 8 years ago on her family vacation, and won't stop raving about. Sound good? Nothing has ever sounded better. A respectful hush falls over the room as the host comes on stage to introduce the first painting up for auction. James joins him, his eyes twinkling as he gazes out at the crowd and listens to the host read off all his credentials as an author, lawyer, debating champion, and now apparently artist, which are so long the host has to actively take pauses in between to catch his breath. And at last, the long-awaited moment, the host finishes. Here is the painting, titled Gong. 3 masked men in suits and ties shuffle forward, their footsteps resounding in the silence. With gloved hands, they set James's painting carefully down like it's made of porcelain instead of canvas, and unveil it for the room to see. A woman gasps. Heated whispers flutter all around them, hands already reaching for their auction paddles. Someone sitting behind him chokes back a sob. Julius simply stares and stares and stares until at last he can't take it anymore. Please tell me we're looking at the same thing, Julius whispers to Sadie. That is a dot, right? I'm not going insane. That is genuinely, literally a single dot? Yes, that is definitely a dot, Sadie whispers back. Unless, is there something, could there be something in the dot? He stares at the dot longer and harder, as if it's a stubborn seal at an aquarium show that will, given enough time, do a spin or something at least mildly impressive. But no, nothing of the sort happens. I think it really is just a dot, Sadie says somberly. Now, ladies and gentlemen, the host calls out. As you can see, the gong is here behind me. Bidding for this work begins at $600,000. Before he's finished his sentence, the first hand goes up. $800,000, the host says, eyes lighting up as he scans the room. Straight in at $900,000. Another hand goes up, then another, almost faster than the host can keep up with. 1 million, the host cries. 1 million going, $1.2 million. Julius wonders if he accidentally signed up for the world's most outrageous social experiment. There's no way any of this is real. As the bidding heats up in the background, out of self-protection, his brain starts tuning it out after he hears the number 2 million. Sadie settles her head on the nook of his shoulder. He inhales the familiar scent of her shampoo, the strawberry one she lugged all the way from Australia with her, because she has an inherent distrust of new brands. As absolutely bizarre as all this is, Sadie murmurs, I think it's really nice you're making an effort. Instinctively, Julius tenses at the words, guilt and embarrassment flushing through him as if he's a student who's been caught stealing cake from the staff room. What do you mean by that? The fact that you keep supporting your brother, Sadie goes on in a low, calm voice. Like, you could have easily made an excuse to skip today's auction altogether. But you showed up for your brother, just like you did for his book launch, and for his debating tournaments, and for his TED Talk. While James can be highly questionable, I think it means more to him than you realize. The idea has never even occurred to Julius that anything he does could mean much to his brother, who already has everything, all the approval and praise and awards. I doubt it. It's nothing more than an opportunity for him to show off, Julius mutters. Even if that were true, that would only go to show the kind of person he is. But you're the kind of person who does stuff like this. You try. You always do. And the way she says it, trying doesn't seem so mortifying. Not something you do as a last resort when you aren't good enough to rely on natural talent alone. But trying in itself can be good. She makes him want to keep trying. Try harder, be better. When the auction finally wraps up, Julius finds his way to his brother with Sadie right beside him. This isn't very hard to do when James Gong is standing at the center of the room, a champagne glass held high in his hand, surrounded on all sides by his new admirers. Juicy! James waves him closer and pats him so hard on the back, Julius can feel his bones vibrating. My baby brother, he introduces him to everyone at large, earning him a few awes that make Julius feel about 15 years younger than he really is. Then his brother grins at Julius and leads them to a quieter corner That was a lot of fun, wasn't it? That was a lot, is the extent to which Julius can agree. James glances down at Julius's hand, which is wrapped around Sadie's. And look, your girlfriend's here. Hello, hello, I must say. It's just so nice that the two of you are still together, he tells Sadie. Sadie blinks, like he's remarked on something as obvious as the sun being in the sky. Of course we're still together. Oh, well, I only mean that my brother can be a lot to put up with. And I can't even imagine how devastated he would be if you were ever to leave him. He didn't see you for, what, only a few days over the holidays, and he was distraught. I was not distraught, Julius says in a hurry. A smile twitches on Sadie's lips. Is that so? She asks James. He kept looking at the photos he'd taken of you at the beach and reading over your texts, James confirms. The few times I saw him smiling were when he was calling you or talking about you. It's always Sadie this, Sadie that. Sadie would love this restaurant. Sadie's so smart. Sadie said she has a sore throat, so I should get some medicine delivered. Sadie's read that book too. Sadie's perfect. Julius clears his throat with emphasis. Sadie, didn't you say you really needed to find the restroom? I can wait just a bit longer, Sadie says innocently. He shoots her a look, a silent plea, and Sadie lets him panic for a few more seconds before she acquiesces. Okay, no, I do need to find the restroom. Let me go ask someone, she says. Everything else goes as planned. When his phone rings a minute later, Julius manages to pull off his most, I'm sorry, but this is urgent, act, and slips out through the door while his brother goes up to take his $3 million, which was apparently the final bid for the dot. And the strangest thing is that he should be more bothered by this. He should be dwelling on the unbelievable fact that his brother flicked his wrist in a restaurant one random day and produced something that is now worth more than the average person could make across 3 lifetimes. But when he steps out into the cool evening air, the purplish clouds blending into the horizon, light streaming from the cars in the parking lot, and sees Sadie waiting right there for him, he feels a curious lightness in his chest. Who cares, really, if his brother is leaving this place with another potential career path and $3 million to stuff into his already overflowing bank account? He's leaving with Sadie Wen, his co-conspirator, his co-captain, his rival, his life's great defining question and answer. Julius. Julius promised himself 2 things for this trip. He would bring Sadie to Berkeley, and he would refrain from making snarky remarks about how the Stanford campus is vastly superior to the Berkeley one. Yes, they will be attending rival colleges, and there will be plenty of time to bicker with her over this. But this weekend, he will play nice and keep his mouth shut about it. She's already nervous enough about starting school. That's actually why they're here in the first place. Though Sadie has never voiced it aloud, he knows how anxious she gets in unfamiliar environments. She's the kind of person who needs to physically walk right up to a boarding gate to confirm that it does truly exist, even if the plane isn't departing for another hour. The kind of person who wants the full guest list for a social function so she'll know what to expect, and who's bringing who and be able to prepare at least 5 different conversation starters. The kind of person who needs to locate all her classrooms weeks in advance and calculate the exact time it takes to walk from one lecture to another, and also where the nearest drinking fountains are. Oh my God, this place is massive, Sadie says as they stroll down the footpath together. All around them, there are students lounging on the emerald lawns, sipping on boba and sharing nachos in greasy takeout boxes. A girl sleepily holding up a faded paperback to block out the sun. Visiting parents staring wide-eyed at the white pillars and orange-red roofs. no doubt imagining their own children coming here someday. It's all right, I guess, Julius says, and resists the urge to add something about how the Stanford campus is much bigger with better facilities too. I can't believe I'll be, like, an actual student here, Sadie says. I mean, isn't that wild? You'll fit right in? Sadie turns to him, a small crease between her brows. He wishes he could smooth it out with his thumb, make all her worries disappear with just a few words. You really think so? But everyone's going to be so smart, which is exactly why you'll fit in, he says confidently. Come on, give yourself some credit. You managed to top a class that I was in. That automatically puts you in the top 1% of the global population. She nudges him in the ribs. That's really sweet, but I'm pretty sure it was 3 classes. Pretty sure we tied in history, if that's what you're talking about. There was also English. That's only because my examiner had an issue with complex vocabulary. It's not my fault I like to use sophisticated words, he says. She's grinning now, eyes glimmering with amusement. I thought the feedback was that your writing could be convoluted. Complex, he counters. It would only seem convoluted to those with poor reading comprehension. You did have a strong thesis, she allows. I did, didn't I? He accepts the truce and points to an empty spot under the shade of a pine tree. Want to get lunch over there? I packed a picnic for us. Hang on, is that what you've been carrying around the whole day? Sadie asks, eyeing his bag. You planned an entire picnic for us too. Don't look so surprised. She shakes her head and says in a tone of disbelief. What the hell, Julius? I feel spoiled. Well, good. You should be spoiled, he says, trying not to look ridiculously pleased with himself. He used to think that there was no feeling better than beating Sadie Wen in a test. But that was before he experienced the euphoria of earning Sadie Wen's approval. They picked their way up the hill, the grass tickling their ankles. He dumps his bag down first, then starts to unpack. The plaid picnic rug he bought. The chocolate chip cookies Margaret dropped outside their door this morning, after they devoured the first batch. Croissants from that beloved bakery down the street with thick slices of ham and cheese he added inside. Sushi when he made himself, though they're a little squashed from the long car ride. An entire container of cherries. Hand sanitizer, because Sadie refuses to eat anything without washing her hands first. Black coffee for himself and a bottle of water for her, which he twists open first. He was concerned that he brought too much food, but soon they finish everything. They lie there in happy silence for a while, stomachs full, a light breeze ruffling their hair, rippling the collar of his shirt. Not going to lie, I was a little scared of the future, Sadie admits to him in a soft voice. There's just so much change, with the new school and leaving Australia and my mom and my brother and just like starting over again. I keep imagining worst case scenarios. Like, what if I don't make any friends here? Or what if I have a meltdown during exam season? Or what if I'm stranded here for some reason and all the flights home get cancelled? Or what if my brain simply refuses to convert to the Fahrenheit system? Or what if my professor is a major asshole? And then I try to switch classes, but my next professor is a major asshole too and I'm stuck with him. Or what if I get homesick or I come down with a fever and I can't just call my mom like I used to? I know, he says quietly. It's okay to be scared. I'm scared too. She rolls over to gaze at him and she looks so beautiful. Her glossy hair let down over her shoulders, light freckles scattered like constellations on her cheeks, her lips stained red from the cherry juice, bare legs stretched across the grass. He actually feels his heart seize. You are? Yes, but if you ask again, I'm going to adamantly deny it. Can't let it damage my reputation, he says. She lets out a snort of laughter. I'm sure your reputation will survive. Well, reputations are fragile things. Is that a quote? Probably. Anything could be a quote if you think about it. Yeah, the other day, I saw someone selling a poster with the quote, "Water your cactus with laughter." Like, what does that even mean? Anyway, she says, rolling onto her back again. And he mirrors her movement, gazing up at the treetops, the cerulean sky expanding above them. A leaf breaks away from a twig and flutters down almost in slow motion, in no hurry to fall. Not to say that I'm no longer scared of the future, but if this is what the future looks like, she makes a vague gesture to them. The picnic, the distant sound of laughter from students lower on the hill. It really can't be that bad, right? It's scary, but it's exciting too. I'm glad, he says. He doesn't say that his future has always been exciting because of her. Not just now, but before too. The thrill that would race through him at the prospect of seeing her again in the halls, of being near her, not even doing anything in particular. She made the very idea of tomorrow exhilarating, as long as tomorrow involved her. He lets himself lie in the moment for a while longer, simply enjoying her closeness. Then he drags himself up, dusting off his shirt, cleans up all the plastic wrap and empty containers, and heads back down the hill to throw their trash away. When he returns, Sadie is preoccupied. A guy around their age is in his spot, talking to her. A tall guy with thick brown hair and unnaturally white teeth, and the sort of defined features that align with the general population's standards for attractiveness. Fine, a good-looking guy who's hitting on her. Even before Julius comes within earshot of their conversation, this is obvious to him. The guy is leaning way too far forward, smiling too wide. Should definitely come and check it out, he's telling Sadie. We're a newer club, but I promise it'll be super fun. You can meet some really great people, like me, he says with a wink that makes Julius's insides clench. Of course, Sadie doesn't seem to realize she's being hit on. She's always underestimated her own power, her effect on other people. What do you guys do exactly? She asks, so polite, so friendly, so oblivious. It's essentially like a big brainstorming session. Whether you're seeking out opinions for your startup, or you're working on a film script, or you're developing an app, we all get together. With free pizza, by the way. Pineapple totally optional. We don't judge around here. Good God. This guy's flirting with Sadie when? By making the most disgustingly bland, unskilled jokes about pineapple on pizza. Julius bets he has that written as one of his prompts on his dating apps, under equally unoriginal prompts about letting his future girlfriend steal his hoodie or wanting travel tips for Japan. He's almost insulted. Pineapple guy means to win over someone as impressive as Sadie Wen with that? And we just throw ideas around and help each other. That's how the magic happens, you feel? Pineapple guy is saying. Yeah, that sounds kind of cool, Sadie says. And Julius can tell that she means it, because she's not using her super strained, high-pitched voice to conceal a lack of real enthusiasm. And so while he wants nothing more than to march straight over and break the conversation up, he clenches his jaw, stays put. This could be an opportunity for Sadie, and he doesn't want to ruin her relations with other people on campus before she's even officially started class here. So you'll come to our meeting? Pineapple guy asks, sounding way more excited than anyone should ever be about any kind of meeting. Why not? Sadie says. If you give me your Instagram handle, I'll message you the details. Pineapple guy says. I can even bring you to the meeting myself if you want. It's a big campus, and I know how easy it is to get lost around here. Sadie blinks up at him for a delayed beat, and Julius can see slowly dawning on her that Pineapple Guy isn't simply interested in her participation in his club. Oh, I don't really use Instagram, she says with an apologetic grimace. Do you have, like, an official website or something? You'll post updates there, right? Yeah, sure. Pineapple Guy falters for a beat, then recovers just as fast. Here, I'll write it down for you. He retrieves a pen and crumpled receipt from his pocket and scribbles something down on it. The website is right here, and I've added my number below. Right. Sadie cranes her neck, distracted, as if searching for someone. For him, Julius realizes, with a rush of warmth. He's all too glad to be walking up to her, to slide his hand around her waist, pull her closer to his side, well aware that Pineapple Guy is tracking every movement. This is my boyfriend Julius, Sadie introduces him loudly. Hey man, Pineapple Guy says. Julius offers him the most perfunctory of nods. Hey! But Pineapple Guy doesn't seem entirely discouraged by his presence. He seems more like he's making an assessment, sniffing out any openings, like a dog behind a closed door. You guys are cute together. Did you meet here? Or high school, Sadie says. Over 10 years ago, actually, Julius adds. 10 years? Pineapple Guy blinks. That's like, damn, that's a really long time. A very long time to be obsessed with someone, Sadie says, with a private smile just for him. And Pineapple Guy seems to reach the conclusion, at last, that the door is firmly locked. Happy for you too, Pineapple Guy says. Listen, I need to run off to the gym, but see you at the meeting, yeah? Sounds good, Sadie tells him. See you there. Pineapple Guy steps back from them, but Julius can still feel him watching, and there's still an unpleasant tension banding around his ribs when he imagines Sadie and the guy laughing together over free pizza. Without another word, he cups Sadie's face and kisses her, longer and deeper than he normally would somewhere so public. He can taste the sweetness of cherries on her lips, feel her sharp inhale of surprise, then her smile, as if she knows what he's thinking. Which, to be fair, isn't much at all right now. Only her. Impossible to think clearly when she's touching the nape of his neck, kissing him back just as hard. Her teeth nip his bottom lip, and for a second, his mind goes perfectly blank. If you're going to kiss me like that whenever you're jealous, I'll have to make you jealous more often, Sadie says when she pulls away to look at him. I'm not jealous, Julius says automatically. She makes a small sound, like a suppressed hum of laughter. Okay, sure. He draws her toward him again, keeps her there. I mean, he should be jealous of me, Julius murmurs against the curve of her neck. But if he bothers you, if anyone bothers you when classes begin, call me. Okay? Actually, that goes for everything. If you're overwhelmed or lonely or sad, or you're stressed about a group project, or if there's a spider on your wall, or the window in your dorm room won't shut properly, or you're working late and craving ramen, or you simply want someone to come and hold you. Anytime. Doesn't matter if it's 3 in the morning. Just call me. What are you going to do? Drive all the way up here? Yes, he says without hesitation. I would, as long as you want me here. And what if I want you here constantly? Well, I'm already planning on seeing you as often as I can, he says, and takes out his phone to show her his calendar. He's marked every public holiday, every weekend, every spare afternoon he might have for the entire academic year. We can meet in the city on weekdays, and I'll drive up to visit you on the weekends. But that's like a 1-hour drive, Sadie points out. Are you sure? Sadie, I'd hop on a 16-hour plane ride to see you, he tells her, and he hopes she knows how much he means it. An hour is nothing. She stares up at him, stunned, visibly moved. What? He asks, teasing. Too mesmerized by how good I look? Her features twist into a half-hearted scowl. Laughing, he picks her purse up from the grass and slings it over his shoulder, then reaches for her with his other hand. Come on, want to go check out the library next? Sadie. You promised Abigail. I repeat this to myself like I might be able to magically channel my best friend's spirit if only I say it enough times. At the very least, it's what's keeping me from chickening out as I zip up my miniskirt. It might well be the shortest skirt I've worn since I was 2 years old. And I have to practice walking around in the bathroom and stretching my arms as if I'm actually 2 again, checking the extent to which I can move without flashing anybody. My immediate findings, not very much at all. But if I'm really going to do this, I'm going to do it right. Or do it the way Abigail envisioned when she assembled the look on our last shopping trip. So the skirt stays, just like the black lace top I'm wearing, the leather boots fitted snugly around my knees, and the gel eyeliner I've managed to draw around my eyes after 3 attempts. Sorry, I'm almost done, I call out to Julius, who's been waiting patiently in the living room since we finished dinner an hour ago. I swallow, my hand on the doorknob, somehow more nervous than I was before my 200-meter dash at the track and field carnival, or even the end-of-year exams. I force my thoughts back to Abigail's pep talk, the encouraging look she gave me, as if I was so much cooler and prettier than I felt. Come on, darling, at least give it a try. If you don't end up enjoying it, you can always change your mind. But it's the experience. It's like a rite of passage. You'll be in a country on the other side of the planet with your super hot boyfriend as a legal adult for the first time in your life. Aren't you even remotely curious what it's like? I've literally never thought about it before, I told her. Well, start thinking about it. I've literally never thought about it before, I told her. Well, start thinking about it. She flipped her platinum hair over her shoulder and winked at me. And don't worry about preparing. I've got you covered. There's no rush, Julius says, his voice sounding much closer than I expected. Close enough for him to be right outside the door. The bar stays open until... To be honest, I don't know how long bars usually stay open, but considering the nature of their business, I'd say we have more than a few hours. Just tell me when to get the Uber. You can call the Uber now. I take a deep breath. Brace myself. What's the worst thing that could happen? No, stupid question. Learned long ago, it doesn't help. My brain doesn't understand that it's meant to be comforting, just treats it as a prompt to invent as many worst-case scenarios as possible, which right now involve Julius laughing at my outfit so hard I die from humiliation. On it, Julius replies, oblivious to the horror movie playing at double speed inside my head. You really don't have to get the luxe every time, by the way, I say. The regular one is fine. You have to remember that my primary mode of transportation is the public bus, Julius. Anything else is already an upgrade. That might be true, but you're traveling with me now, he says. I open the door and he breaks off mid-sentence. He isn't laughing, nothing close to it. He's staring at me with such intense, unabashed want, like he can't even hide it, like it's already taking all his self-control just to keep standing there, hands at his sides. You like the outfit? I ask, a little unsure what to do with myself. He walks over slowly, backing me up against the doorframe. You want to know if I like it? He murmurs, his lips tickling the shell of my ear. I thought you were more perceptive than that, Sadie. I'm so overwhelmed with sensation that I forget to filter my next words. I wasn't sure if you'd find me pretty enough. Another step until his body is almost pressed to mine. Hardly necessary. Not when I'm frozen to the spot already, his pitch-black eyes pinning me into place. Are you still unsure? Warmth spreads through me, rising up to my skin. I guess not. Hmm? He bows his head, and I try not to gasp when his mouth skims my shoulder over the delicate strap of my top. What was that? No, I whisper. Good, he says, his voice low and replete with approval, and the warmth inside my chest sharpens to heat. We both startle when his phone chimes with a notification. Is that the Uber? I ask. He blinks, distracted, looking as disoriented as I feel. What? The Uber, I repeat. Is it downstairs? Right, he says, throwing a dirty look at his phone, like it should know better than to interrupt. Yes. Of course, Julius went ahead and requested the Uber Lux. Even though it's only a 15-minute trip, the driver offers us everything from mineral water to strawberry, Mentos, and chewing gum, and asks if we have a specific temperature requirement for the air conditioning. When we arrive, he hurries outside to open the door for us, wishes us a lovely evening, tells us earnestly that we're a wonderful couple. We should really tip him, I tell Julius as the car pulls away from the curb. Don't worry, I have, Julius replies. The marina is already packed with people, tipsy college students and bleary-eyed finance men and gorgeous girls in leather jackets wander around the winding streets, fairy lights twinkling from the chic restaurants and boutiques. There's so much to take in that I have to pause for a moment. Crowds everywhere, a blend of music, the night air warm, someone doubled over on the sidewalk from laughter or wine or both, their friend trying to help them. I try not to look so wide-eyed, so embarrassingly new to all this. Breaking rules, going out to bars, having fun, wearing clothes that are designed to show rather than cover skin. But I must fail at it, because Julius takes my hand, squeezing it like he's offering reassurance. And it does make me feel safer, protected. Ready to go in? He says. And when I nod, he leads me toward the line forming outside the bar. I can't believe this is the first thing on your itinerary, he remarks. I can't believe it either, I say. It was mostly Abigail's idea, and I wanted to get it out of the way. But as we move closer and closer to the entrance, I start having seventh thoughts. Everyone here looks so much older. Did you bring the fake IDs? I ask Julius. He pats his pocket. Got everything here. What if they find out the IDs are fake? I worry. Will we get in trouble? What if I get kicked out of Berkeley? I doubt they'll be able to tell, Julius says, the corner of his mouth curving. Unless, of course, you continue to talk out loud about how fake they are. Right. I flush, drop my voice into a whisper. Sorry. But, what if they ask questions? Or what if the accent makes them suspicious? Should we come up with a backstory? I don't know, should we have jobs? As a society, that's always been a topic for contention. I elbow him. You know what I mean? Sadie, you'll be fine, he says, amused. He brushes a strand of hair out of my face, where it's stuck to my lip gloss, and tucks it behind my ear. Everything will be fine. He's right. The bouncer barely glances at our fake IDs before waving us forward through the doors, and then we're in. I realize at once that it hadn't been crowded outside at all. Not compared to here. The bodies are so tightly packed that if it weren't for Julius, I probably wouldn't be able to take more than 2 steps in before being squeezed back out. There's some kind of aquatic theme going on here. Waves painted over the walls, heavy ropes suspended from the ceiling like anchors, the bartenders dressed as sailors, which seems to be really working on a few girls. Even the cocktails are a vivid ocean blue. The music thuds so loud that I can feel it thrumming through my bones, reverberating in my eardrums. Everyone here's in love or heartbroken, drunk and attractive, dancing and bumping into one another and trying to find their friends, the opposite of what I trained myself to be most of my life. Uninhibited, unrestrained, unapologetic. Do you want a drink? Julius asks me. Um, okay, yeah, I say. He doesn't let go of my hand the entire way to the bar counter where he orders a whiskey for himself, a cocktail for me. He laughs when I accept my drink with both hands, ice clinking against the glass, and take a tentative sip. It tastes like soda with only the faintest sour edge. This actually isn't bad, I say in surprise. Don't act like you haven't had alcohol before, he says with a knowing look, and the memory stretches between us like an elastic band. The party at my house, playing truth or dare, rambling on and on to him after everyone had left, saying too much, touching his hair, just wanting to touch him and hoping he would let me, and hating myself for wanting it so badly. But I can touch him now, I think, with a stupid little thrill, and I do, and he does let me. I move my fingers over his neck and down his chest, and he suddenly pulls me in like he's about to kiss me, his forehead almost bumping against mine, his lashes long and shadowed in the low bar light. I can sense his smile more than see it. Have I mentioned that you're beautiful tonight? He asks. I hear my own heart bursting. Not directly, no. Sometimes I worry I'd bore you if I told you every single time I found you beautiful, he says. But you are, just so you know. You're also... I pause, desperately wanting to return the compliment but unable to find the right word. Beautiful would sound like I'm parroting him, even though it's true. He's so beautiful it's painful. Outrageous, really. Cute is too casual, overlaps too much with baby animals and stuffed toys. Handsome has formal, archaic ring to it, like something our Airbnb host might say while patting his cheek and offering more cookies. Hot seems tactless, makes it sound like I'm just eager to make out with him, which I kind of am, but still. You're incredible, I say in the end. I'm incredible, he repeats, brows rising. No, like, I bite my lip, frustrated with myself for not being able to express it properly. Like, really, really incredible. You're incredible to me, to be around. As a person, you make me so happy I sometimes wonder how this could even be real life. I take another sip of my drink to shut myself up. Maybe I should have just gone with hot. But then he holds me, his chin resting on my head, so I can feel it when he draws in a tight breath. That's the nicest thing anyone has ever said to me, he says quietly. That can't be true. It is. For as long as I can remember. And you know how excellent my memory is. I do, I admit. And he just continues holding me without talking, without needing to. Because somehow I can sense everything he's feeling. And I feel it too. Julius. They manage to survive at the bar for 2 whole hours, while the people around them get progressively drunker and louder and clumsier, before Sadie announces, with a note of finality, "This has been a great experience. Very immersive," he agrees, trying not to notice the couple aggressively making out within 2 feet of them. Or they might be engaging in some sort of carnivorous ritual. It's hard to tell, what with the way they're biting each other's lips and arms. I'm so glad we did this, Sadie says, also pointedly not looking at the couple. I'm glad too. She pauses. Do you want to leave now? Yes, says immediately, relieved. Please. They're rounding the corner when someone bumps straight into him and he feels ice-cold liquid splash across his side. He immediately lurches back with a hiss. But it's too late. Half his shirt is soaked through, the fabric sticking too tight to his skin, and he smells overwhelmingly like beer. Not even the expensive kind. Shit, the perpetrator mutters, too stupidly drunk to apologize. His glazed-over eyes stay on Julius for about 1/5 of a second, less time than it took for him to spill his entire drink over his brand-new $900 shirt. And Julius forces himself to exhale, to swallow down a series of foul words. If he were alone, he wouldn't drop it. He'd need compensation, if not financial, then certainly emotional. Some form of acknowledgement that being drenched with bad beer is a less than ideal way to finish a night that was, up until now, pretty great. But Sadie is with him, and he doesn't want to risk getting into an argument. Doesn't want to scare her, so he turns to leave. But then he hears Sadie yell out over the pounding music, "Hey, aren't you going to apologize?" If he weren't so familiar with the sound of her voice, he wouldn't believe it was her talking. The model student, the people pleaser, the girl who always speaks like she's in a library, who hates confrontation almost as much as she hates failing. She's the last person he'd expect to shout at a stranger in a bar. But there she is, eyes flashing, standing her ground, her jaw clenched with indignation. She steps out in front of Julius, arms crossed over her chest. She's a whole foot shorter than the guy with the beer, but she shows no fear. It's like watching a tiny rabbit attack a bear. The guy frowns at her. "Huh? I literally just watched you spill your drink on my boyfriend," Sadie says, her voice growing louder and firmer. "And you didn't even say sorry." "It's okay, Sadie," Julius tells her quietly, shocked to even be in this position. "No, it's not okay," Sadie mutters, angling her head back, her features softening briefly as she focuses on him. "You really like that shirt. I can buy a new one." "I'm sure you can, but it's the principle of the matter," Sadie insists. "You deserve an apology." I didn't see him," the guy stammers, his face flushed. "That's not a good enough excuse," Sadie tells him. And maybe it's the fierceness in her expression, the sheer unwavering intensity with which she's staring the guy down, or the fact that she's definitely drawing upon her public speaking techniques from all the assemblies they've led. But he bows his head like an admonished child. "Sorry, man," he mumbles to Julius. "My bad. I'll watch it next time." "All good," Julius says. He can barely feel the dampness in his clothes anymore. He's too busy staring at Sadie, who begrudgingly lets the guy slink off into the crowd with his empty beer cup. "What?" Sadie says, meeting his gaze, the anger dissolving from her face. He shakes his head, wordless. How to explain it, even to himself? She has said before that she would choose him, but it still floors him to know she would protect him, stand up for him, care about him this much. Nobody has before. "You didn't have to do that," is what he manages at last. But Sadie just shoots him an incredulous look. "Yeah, of course I did." Like that settles it. Like he doesn't just deserve to be cared about. But it's natural, unquestionable. His throat tightens. Impulsively, he rests his hand on the back of her head, feeling the heat exuding through her soft hair, just under his fingertips. And she relaxes against his touch with a sigh. Like this is natural too. And he feels a love so immense, it might actually crush him. "Come on," Sadie says, reaching into her purse for napkins, because of course, she just happens to be carrying spare napkins around with her. "Let's head back. Oh my God, you know what?" she says excitedly. "I just remembered. I think I saw Scrabble at the Airbnb." As if he couldn't love her more. Sadie. Sometimes I'll build up this vision inside my head, and it's so perfect, so beautiful, that I'm convinced reality can't live up to it. I was terrified of that happening with this trip. that I turned it into a fantasy, promised myself too much. Classic case of false advertising. And once we landed on solid ground and started exploring the city, things would go wrong. I would end up disappointed, my hopes would be foiled one way or another. Yet it's even better than I daydreamed about. Not because it goes precisely according to plan. We only visit half the restaurants I searched up and saved. And we have to adjust a few of the activities on my itinerary because of uncooperative weather. But that doesn't matter, not when I'm with Julius. On Wednesday morning, we get brunch at a hole-in-the-wall dim sum spot, where you can tell it's authentic because the waitresses ignore you and the menus are laminated, the prices adjusted via Sharpie, unavailable menu options directly scribbled over so the tables are close enough together that I feel like we're dining with the old couple next to us. I order salted egg yolk buns for us to share, and we both eat quietly, pretending not to be eavesdropping on the couple as they rant about son-in-law. What kind of man, the wife tuts, forgets to take his clothes out of the laundry machine for a week? We go grocery shopping in the afternoon, finding our way around the Asian supermarket on Clement Street, and I bake the egg tarts Julius loves so much. Back in our Airbnb, I call over the sound of the TV to ask him how much half a pound is in grams, and he joins me in the kitchen, wraps his arms around my waist, and pulls me back toward him. And I'm laughing, flour dusted on my forehead, pretending to complain about how he's getting in the way. We set the timer together, and soon the air is rich with the fragrance of custard and butter. He takes a giant bite while it's still steaming hot and tells me it's the best thing he's ever had. When the day draws to a close, we head down to the beach together. In the back of the car, he rests one hand on my thigh, his finger lightly tapping out a rhythm in beat with the music blasting from the speakers, and I stare out the window so he can't see me smiling. Once the driver drops us off, we find a bench to watch the sun sink beneath the sea. It looks like liquid gold from here, its last rays the brightest, most dazzling, the orange of the sky burning against the deep, cold blue of the water. Seagulls fly in a straight line across the horizon, heading home before it gets dark. I can't stop grinning up at him. I feel almost drunk with affection, so deliriously happy that he's here. We could talk about anything, do anything. With everyone else, it feels like I'm scrambling to keep up with their pace, yet still somehow always off by a beat or a key. But with him, there's a natural rhythm, unique to only us. The flow of words, the space between breaths, the shift of his body next to mine. Then there's the modern Italian restaurant we visit on Thursday night, the one Julius apparently reserved for us weeks in advance. Even though this is technically cheating, and I should be in charge of all our dinner plans for this week, but it has such high ratings and the menu looks so appealing that I don't have the heart to protest. The interior is fancy without being too flashy, and we're seated right by the window with a view of the city and the rippling water. Are we celebrating anything tonight? The waitress asks us. Julius tilts his head toward me. There's a lot to celebrate. True, I say. Graduating as valedictorians, for one. Joint valedictorians, Eava supplies. Right, joint valedictorians. And getting into our dream schools. And most importantly, it's the 6th-month anniversary of the email incident, Julius says. I blink. It's what? You don't remember? Julius's mouth twitches. On this very special day, 6 months ago, I'm sitting in physics class, just minding my own business, when all of a sudden I receive 42 lengthy emails from my co-captain confessing how obsessed she is with me. I kick his leg underneath the table, but he doesn't pull back or even flinch. That's not how it happened. I protest. Would you like to review the evidence together? I have all the emails printed out, Julius says. I gape at him. You, you printed them out? You never told me that. Of course. I'm keeping them for life, he says, leaning back leisurely in his seat, his dark eyes glittering under the chandeliers. Well, congratulations to you both, the waitress says, looking quite lost, and leaves to fetch our menus. I didn't even remember that the date was today, I admit to Julius. I guess that settles it, doesn't it? What? That I have a better memory than you, he says, so proud of himself, it's almost endearing, like a kid showing off the sparkly sticker he earned at school. You remembered one date, I counter. I remember them all, Aang says confidently. Test me if you'd like. When's my birthday then? He looks affronted by the question. Sadie, when? Do you honestly think I wouldn't remember your birthday? I remember the exact color of the skirt you wore on our first official date. I remember where we were sitting when you first held my hand. Okay, you're really setting yourself up for a huge apology if you ever forget our first-year anniversary, I point out. He shrugs. That simply won't happen. Not our first anniversary, not our second, not any of the ones after. When the waitress returns, we choose the potato gnocchi and sticky date pudding upon her recommendation. It tastes like childhood, but someone else's childhood. The cake itself is warm and sweet and buttery. The caramel sauce even sweeter. The kind of food where you can feel how much sugar has been stuffed into every bite. But you can't stop eating it anyway. The sky is pitch black now, and it's dim indoors too. The restaurant lighting up only when a group of teenagers in cocktail dresses gather to take a rapid series of photos with the flash on, switching up poses, positions, self-conscious, and showing off at the same time. We should get a photo together too, Julius tells me. We get 5. In the first photo, I'm so awkward that I pose like I'm getting my passport photo taken, facing straight ahead, my shoulders stiff. But by the 5th, I find the nerve to wrap my arms tight around Julius, burying my face into his chest. I like this one, he says, and sets it as his new lock screen right there in front of me, and I try not to act too thrilled. On our way home, we stop by a bookstore where he hands me a massive tote bag and gestures to the shelves like he owns them. Choose as many as you like, he tells me. I'll buy them for you. I laugh, shake my head. That's really very generous, but even if I wanted to, I couldn't possibly carry them all. Why would you be carrying them by yourself? He asks like he's genuinely confused about why this would be a concern. Just leave it to me. I must spend hours browsing. There are 5 sprawling levels in the bookstore, each with their own towering tables of new releases and displays of shiny hardcovers and special editions. Julius follows me through the aisles, letting me take my time, listening with quiet amusement, while I read the blurbs, the author bios, point out every title I recognize or already own. He carries the tote bag for me exactly as promised, filling it up with book after book after book until the straps appear in danger of breaking. Okay, that's more than enough for me, I decide. What about you? Is there anything you need from here? He blinks, like he hadn't even considered getting anything for himself. I suppose there are a few texts I could buy now. Better prepare for when classes start. When classes start. My stomach tenses as the reality rushes in around me. It's not as if this is news, as if I'd forgotten the commencement date for the fall semester, but I've been trying to block it out the whole trip, worry about it later, and it was almost too easy to. During those early days, when we first landed in San Francisco, it felt like we had a luxurious amount of time stretched out ahead of us. An endless number of cafes to try and rate on a scale of to die for to overhyped, sunlit parks to stroll through, Nights to waste kissing in the kitchen. Mornings to wake up with my fingers laced through his. 2 entire weeks. Practically a life. But now, I realize it is later. The hourglass I've been ignoring has already tipped over, leaking out faster and faster. By this time, next week, we'll be moving into our dorms, heading off to orientation with the other incoming freshmen. Should be downstairs in the non-fiction section, Julius is saying. I'll just grab them really quick. Okay, go for it, I tell him, keeping my voice as light and level as I can. My face turned away from him, so he can't see my expression. He's too good at detecting when I'm anxious. Knows me too well, like when I was bitten by a mysterious insect the week before we left for the US, and my brain was considerate enough to float the possibility that the insect might be venomous or carrying a deadly disease. And while I fell silent, picturing my tragic demise and wondering if we'd be able to get our plane tickets fully refunded, Julius had lifted my bare ankle onto his lap to rub some insect bite gel in. His fingers gentle and pleasantly cool. "You're not going to die from this, by the way," he said dryly, as if I'd spoken my thoughts aloud. But I don't want him to have to reassure me now. I don't want to ruin the perfect ending to a perfect day. I watch him take the escalator down, the familiar back of his silhouette, the bulky bag weighing on his shoulder. It's only once before he's gone that I start walking without any particular direction or purpose, just to keep myself moving, to quiet the 100 different awful scenarios playing out in my mind. When classes start, what if everything changes then? What if school gets too busy and he forgets to text me back one day, and then 2 days, and the distance between us grows until I can't reach him anymore? What if he meets someone new, a brilliant, beautiful Stanford girl who'll invite him to parties and save a seat for him in class and won't throw a fit if she loses to him in Scrabble? What if he wakes up and changes his mind about me? Because that's what happens, isn't it? According to Abigail's daily gossip updates, almost every couple from our high school has already broken up. Many of them weren't even that sad about it. There was a mutual acknowledgement that things wouldn't work out once they headed off to college. But if I were ever to lose Julius, I swallow, an ache in my throat, the mere idea physically unbearable. My phone buzzes, the sudden vibration against my pocket jolting me back to the present. I hadn't even noticed how far I've walked, but when I glance up, I find myself on the other side of the bookstore. I quickly read over the new text from Julius. "Where are you? Women's fiction section?" I text back. "Near the cafe. Stay there." He replies at once. "I'll come find you." I stare at the words on the screen until my fears feel small, surmountable. The knot in my stomach untangles itself, and I let myself breathe in fully, inhaling the scent of new books and fresh blueberry muffins from the cafe. "There you are," Julius says. I spin around, and as he smiles at me, the last of my worries fade into the background. This is Julius Gong, after all. My Julius, the boy who'd run all my races for me, who's memorized everything I've ever said, who's carrying a bag full of my books, and who's studying my face closely right now. "You seemed a bit quiet earlier," he says, and the ache in my throat moves deeper, swelling inside my chest. Even with my attempts to hide it, he still noticed. "Are you okay?" "Better than okay," I tell him. "You sure?" I nod, because despite the uncertainties, despite the changing seasons, the risk of new beginnings, I'm sure about him. About us. Because I know without a doubt that as long as I tell Julius Gong where I am, he'll say, "Stay there. I'll come find you," and he will find me in any crowd, any room, any city. He always has.